Hi, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to the College and Prep Facebook Live event. We're so glad that you're joining us. I'm Jody Liston with College and Prep. We're going to wait just a few minutes to let the room fill up. We know that a lot of you have registered this evening, and we certainly want to give you time to arrive. So we're going to take just a few minutes. We're going to talk amongst ourselves as you join us, and then we'll get started with our special guest co-host this evening, Mark Leinweaver from Yorktown originally, a Westchester native. Happy to have you here with us. Major League Baseball agent, recruiting expert, I don't know, chief carpenter. I don't know how many things I can list, but we're happy to have you joining us here.
Beachgoer for sure, now that I live out in Manhattan Beach, California, a little ways away from Yorktown, but love doing events like this. Jody, happy to be a part of the College and Prep presentation today. And Tom, who is far more of an expert than I can ever be, happy to see you as well.
Thanks, Mark. It's good seeing you too. I think that everybody will enjoy your presentation. I've seen it a few times, and I think the message that you have for everybody is well worth it. And I think everybody will be very pleased after hearing you tonight.
Well, I appreciate it. It's interesting because I think a lot of student athletes, parents included, and Jody, you know this better than I, but because you're on the ground truly speaking to the parents and the students, these are unforeseen experiences and times for these young men and women. And so I think any traditional variable that they were either taught or told you should do X or Y is likely going to be very different, especially for the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah. Well, we certainly are anxious to hear everything you have to share with us. And I think understanding how COVID has shifted so much of what we know in traditional recruiting, whether you're working with somebody like Tom or not. If you're working with somebody at your school, if you're working with an educational consultant, if you're just exploring on your own, many people don't understand what it means to be recruited or to be searching for the right school for them. And certainly now with COVID, college admissions, it's a whole different landscape in general. Never mind if you're an athlete at any level, right? So we certainly want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I think, and obviously when we transition into the presentation, we'll get a little more in depth, but I think one thing that certainly we're learning here in California, in the circumstances of California, while dire, probably not as dire as the greater New York City or tri-state area from a health perspective, is that life has changed. And I think we get a little self-consumed or a little self-absorbed as to how our lives are changing. I think a major key for all of these students, all of the athletes, all of the parents is you also need to put yourself in the position of maybe the coaches or to the teams or to the colleges. Their lives and their circumstance have changed as well. So as if it's not hard enough as to what you're supposed to be doing to try to take that next step, you now are met with maybe an equally, if not more challenging task of, well, I also have to think about what's going on the other end and taking their circumstances into account while you're trying to do something that is quite difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's hard when it's you, your child, or you personally, you're thinking about yourself, right? And your own, oh my gosh, like I've waited my whole life for my kid to play baseball, basketball, lacrosse, soccer, whatever it is at XYZ school, right? Like this is your life dream.
I would agree. And Tom, you see it probably a little more on a day-to-day level, going from being around student athletes and giving them a high five in the hallway or seeing them in practice or at a game to completely being physically absent, communicating, I'm assuming, with them some way, shape, or form during the quarantine. But this is a total 180.
Right now, we're in the world of the unknown, and that's for everybody right now. So, you know, so many things have changed in the landscape of things. So many things have changed. So, you know, the communication of dealing with people remotely translates to this as well. You know, all the college coaches, they can't physically be at events. They can't physically be they don't know what showcases will be available to them in the summertime, where people are so apt to be going to those, and we're looking forward to those. The unknown of those occurring is out there. So the communication right now of dealing remotely and reaching out to these coaches is vital for student athletes right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. I know, and we're going to get started here in one moment, but I know we were so excited that our son was ending his sophomore year and he was going to be able to be connecting with coaches because he was going into his junior year, and all of the events that were supposed to be occurring this summer were, we were hoping, right, he would be seen, or the whole landscape has changed. And now we're trying to figure it out as well. And there's, I don't even know, hundreds of thousands of people, I would imagine, in that scenario. They're ending their sophomore year, starting as juniors, or they are juniors ending, or the seniors who are still trying to make those decisions. It's just, and it's a little bit heartbreaking, I think as well, but it's just past 6:30. I know everybody's super anxious to hear Mark's presentation. So let me just introduce everybody that you're seeing on the screen. I'm Jody Liston, president and founder of College and Prep. I'm thrilled to be here this evening and presenting to you first on, my right on the screen. I'm not sure what everybody else is seeing, but is Tom Baker. Tom is our athlete, academic, athletic, educational consultant. He works with anybody who comes to us who's interested in pursuing college admissions. Certainly we're interested in academics, but if you have any athletic aspirations, Tom is the person that will likely be holding your hand throughout that process. So Tom's here joining us this evening. I'm sure he's going to have a lot to say in interacting with Mark. And so let me present to you this evening Mark Leinweaver, Major League Baseball agent, born and raised in Westchester, right here in Yorktown, a hometown boy, although he lives in LA now. And he can also be found at perfectplacement.com, where he often talks about, as he's speaking to us this evening, character, bullying, and about finding the right college first. And Mark has a lot to share with us this evening. I'm going to move away and let Tom and Mark take the stage, if you will. Mark, the audience is yours.
Thank you, Jody.
Well, thank you, Jody, and thanks to Tom as well. The opportunity to come here, present to you via Facebook Live is albeit unique, but one that I absolutely appreciate and welcome. And this will be a little bit different tonight. I am traditionally giving presentations like this in an auditorium or a gymnasium, a cafeteria, somewhere in your hometown. And as someone who grew up in Yorktown, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but I went through this process over 25 years ago. And I believe that those roots in the greater New York City area, Westchester for me specifically, really created a foundation, not just for me to go through the college process, and fortunately the college athletic playing process, but I'm a Major League Baseball agent. I've been incredibly fortunate to spend the last 20 plus years of my professional career in baseball, the sport that I grew up loving and playing. And so we'll talk a little bit about that process tonight, less about me and more about you. Now, it might sound a little nuts to say, how are we going to talk about you if you can't participate? Trust me, I'm going to slow down at times and allow student athletes and moms and dads to correspond with each other. A lot of the questions that I'll ask, a lot of the things that we'll talk about is designed exclusively for mom and dad with their son or daughter. So a few notes, just a couple of points that I'd like to bring up before we get into the nuts and bolts tonight. And the first part is I'm incredibly realistic. As I mentioned, being from New York and growing up in Westchester, the circumstances of COVID-19 in the greater New York area, I hope that everybody is healthy and safe, and certainly in quarantine times remaining sane. But for you and yours, hopefully things are better, not worse, and we continue to trend that direction. This beard, okay, listen, I don't usually have a beard. I am doing this because I told the players I refuse to shave until opening day. There have been reports out there in the media that could be maybe around the 4th of July. Some of those reports are accurate. Baseball has a lot of work to do, more so on the health circumstances and the unpredictability there than versus the X's and O's of getting players to sites and playing games again with no fans. But I told the players I wouldn't shave until opening day. No one wants a major league season more than me, because if there is no season and this thing grows until April of 2021, I don't know how good of a look that's going to be for me, for anybody. But I did want to at least share with you a tiny bit of my background, growing up in Yorktown, playing 4 years of non-scholarship, keywords there, non-scholarship Division II baseball at Stonehill College, which is located just outside of Boston. And again, created an unbelievable 4-year opportunity both on and off the field, and then ultimately leading to 20 years of working in professional sports. So because of the individuals like Jody and the college and preps of the world, and even for many of you, whether it's academic advisors or guidance counselors, athletic directors, whomever, most of you do have some resources to point to turn to, as you start to make your college decision-making process and funnel from a bunch of schools to ultimately that one you plan on attending. Now, one person who we haven't pointed out because she's off screen, she's our IT extraordinaire, is Christine. And Christine's going to help me throughout the day, not only post some of the things that we're going to share together that I think will serve as an education, but she will help us transition from point to point and field anything that might be IT related on your end. So, but let's get into it, okay? I'm going to assume, because tonight is a little bit different than the presentation I would traditionally give at a high school. I'm going to assume that most families and students have taken the time to decide what size of school they want to go to, how far away from home they want to be, what their potential majors and minors might be based on the schools, the studies that they have right now in high school, what they do well in, what they enjoy, what extracurriculars do they like. Are they more of a warm weather type of individual? Do they prefer skiing and snowboarding and would rather take a trip to the mountains? I'm going to assume that that part of the process for the family has been handled. The reason I say that is because if we are going to talk about recruiting, and I'm going to put that in quotes, if we are going to talk about recruiting, we all know that these quarantine times have changed the ability for a coach to come down and see you play. They are not going to be able to just show up at a game because there are no games. And I don't think the summer is going to be a whole lot better than the spring, and possibly the fall might not be a whole lot better than the summer. So, as a group, as a family, for the student athletes and the parents, we are going to have to recruit ourselves. We are going to have to use a skill set that most of these young men and women, sadly, don't have. And so while a lot of people can look at this quarantine situation as the glass is half empty, I personally think for every single family out there, namely the student athletes, this glass is not just half full, it is overflowing the brim. Now, Christine, if you don't mind sharing the Character Matters one sheet, this will serve a little bit as an itinerary for us tonight. I'm going to guide you through what we're going to go through. The presentation where I speak will be roughly 45 minutes in total. And then we'll leave plenty of time at the end for questions and answers, whether they're for me, whether they're for Tom, or of course for Jody. You can see on the screen a little bit of background. Obviously a tiny bit about me. It transitions into recruiting yourself. This process is not the job of the athletic director, of the coach, of the special advisor assistant person that you spend hundreds to maybe thousands of dollars a week or a year to advise you through it. And it's certainly not the job of mom and dad. This is all the responsibility of the student athlete. And if you've been paying attention to this point, you already know I'm a major league agent. And while I represent dozens of major and minor league baseball players, for every student athlete out there, congratulations, because you are now an agent too. And unlike my dozens of clients, you have one client on your roster. Any idea who that is? I know there's enough student athletes out there that were able to answer themselves. You have to be your own agent. You have to be in charge of your own career. If you don't know how to sell your player to the general manager, the president, the team owner, to try to sign them as an agent, you're going to fail. So if you don't know yourself, if you don't know your strengths, if you don't know your weaknesses, if you don't even know why you want to go to that college where you are speaking to a coach in their office, I promise you, you will fail. So use this time to take what we are going to discuss tonight, to sharpen your skills, practice, so that when the lights are on and that opportunity comes to get a coach on the phone, to correspond with them via email, or the ultimate, sit down with them in their office, 5 feet across from them, you're going to be ready to go. Now, as we kind of wrap up the itinerary here, you'll notice that we're going to talk about how character matters. Tonight's presentation is not exclusively about athletics. It's not about how we contact a coach or how we get on someone's radar. It's about being a person. Because when I tell you, it is not enough anymore to just be an athlete on the field, on the court, in the pool. It is not enough to be a great scholar, fantastic student, off the charts types of marks, in class, SAT, ACT, whatever. There is a third component, and is being a good person, a contributing member to society. That the character portion of your profile might be the most important part of the recruiting process, because that coach is going to make a determination on, yes, athleticism, on skill, on talent. There are going to be, in some cases, dozens of athletes trying out for 1, 2, maybe 3 positions. How do you make that team? If all the talent looks about the same, your character, who you are, what you do on the field, maybe more importantly, off of it, could be the difference between making the team and getting cut from it. So that's a little bit of an overview of what we'll do for the next 30 or so minutes. And let's transition now into how you actually reach out to those coaches. What the jobs of the agents, who, as we've talked about, is the student athlete, how they go about that process. So I've picked 5, 6, 7 schools that I want to go visit. The family has determined that in a couple of weeks, a couple of months, whenever it might be, we want to go see, we'll use Stonehill College as an example, since that's where I went. We decide we're going to go visit Stonehill, about 3.5 hours from Westchester. Student population of about 2,500, has the majors, the minors, and the extracurriculars that I'm interested in. Think, talk among yourselves. What are those schools that you already have in mind? Well, once those are identified, the way we just identified Stonehill, we now have to recruit ourselves and reach out to the coach. Christine, if you don't mind bringing up the sheet that says voicemail or call. So for us, we need to do a little research. We're going to need to pick up the phone, and I'm going to repeat myself. We are going to have to pick up the phone. That is something, mom and dad, that these young men and women are remarkably challenged by. They do not know how to have a conversation. Certainly, with you in person, they can maybe do what we're doing right now. They can get in front of a screen as if there's some anchor on the nightly news. But once that conversation is on the phone where they have to speak, or dreadfully in person where they have to talk on the spot, they are a deer in headlights. This is the first step of the process. I know that everybody's smart enough out there that if they really wanted to go to Stonehill and they wanted to play field hockey, if they just Googled keywords, Stonehill College, field hockey, head coach, email, probably the first or second Google search will result in links with their contact information. We don't have to spend a bunch of money on things to find that information. It's already at your fingertips with your phones and your computers. So we find those coaches' names. Notice I said coaches. We find those coaches' names because it's not enough to just call the head coach. We're going to call the head coach. We're going to call the associate head coach. We're going to call the assistant coach. We're going to call the graduate assistant coach. We're going to call them all because you don't know whose responsibility it is to be in charge of dealing with the student athletes that are coming in a year or 2 from now. We don't want to leave anything for chance. So we are going to pick up the phone, a phone number that we quickly found on a very, very simple Google search. And we're going to leave a voicemail like this. It's a Mad Libs. For the student athletes that have no idea what a Mad Libs is, ask your parents. But basically, we have a structured voicemail to leave. We are simply just filling in the blanks. So read along with me. Hi, Coach Bowen. This is Mark Leinweaver. I'm a junior at Yorktown High School in Yorktown Heights, New York. I'm calling to introduce myself. I am interested in Stonehill College and plan to visit the campus with my family on September 28th. I'm definitely interested in the communications program and obviously playing baseball for your program as well. I'm the starting catcher on my varsity high school and summer travel team. I have a 3.1 GPA, and I got a 29 on my ACTs. In addition to being an athlete, I'm a member of the fill in your organization. We're going to get to that. I'm a member of the school senate, and I volunteer in the community with the Unified Special Needs Organization of New York State. I appreciate that you're busy with your team, but I did want to reach out to let you know my sincere interest in Stonehill College and meeting you personally on my campus visit. Again, this is Mark Leinweaver, and my cell phone is. Thanks, Coach Bowen. I look forward to hearing from you. You're going to leave that voicemail. You can take this script, fill in the blanks, and you're going to leave that voicemail, like I said, for the head coach, the associate head coach, the assistant coach, the graduate assistant coach. You're going to call them all. And quarantine or not, whether they are there or not, they're going to check their voicemails. They are. And believe it or not, even though seasons and programs have been shut down, canceled, they have lives too. They're busy dealing with the same stuff that we're dealing with. And when you think of things like that, when you realize, when you put yourself on the other side of the fence and they don't call back right away, it's up to you to take the initiative to call again. I'm not saying you call 5 hours later or 5 days later, but maybe 10 days to 2 weeks later, you're going to pick up the phone and call them again because they are busy. I will tell you that these individuals have full-time jobs, oftentimes, in addition to being the coach of the team. Why? Because most of what we're talking about is geared to a D2, D3 athlete. Most of these programs are going to be at a D2, D3 level. And the reason why we're recruiting ourselves is because, trust me, and I know that Tom Baker can attest to this. If you were D1 material, and this is not to bust bubbles, this is not to dash dreams. If you were D1 material, you would know it. Because those coaches would have called you, emailed you, visited you, saw you in person, invited you on a legit recruiting campus visit, not send you some letter via email inviting you to some camp that costs $500 or $1,000. You would know if you were being recruited by a D1 school. And since I think that that is not most of us, myself included, we need to operate on what I just described by identifying the college and reaching out to those schools, just the way I explained. Now, before we transition into what an email that we will write as a follow-up to this voicemail will look like, I'm going to share some percentages. I'm going to read for you, and I've got to cheat and look down. I'm going to read for you the percentages of high school athletes who earn a spot on a men's or women's Division I team. Listen for your sport. Less than 3% for football, water polo, field hockey, lacrosse, golf, swimming, track, soccer, and cross country. Less than 2% for baseball, wrestling, and volleyball. And less than 1% for basketball, volleyball, and tennis. Ice hockey has the highest percentage at 5%, and that is just to earn a spot on the team. That is a non-scholarship spot at a D1 school where you are literally brought in to be a glorified end-of-the-bench practice player. Those people actually get recruited by D1s because they are so much better than everybody else on the field. It's okay because I and so many of you are going to be so lucky to just play D2 or D3. Why? Because of all those sports I just said, less than 7.5% of the entire athletic playing population will play D1, D2, D3, and NAIA combined. So if I flip that percentage and tell you that 92.5% or more of all the high school seniors in your sport right now will not go on to play in college, well, that's a pretty sobering statistic. And all of a sudden, being the worst Division II or Division III player on the worst Division II or Division III team in America just became a heck of an accomplishment. So again, still trying to keep everything on the up and up because we're not in the world or business of dashing hopes or dreams, we do need to have a little bit of a realistic expectation here, because when you are leaving that voicemail to that D2 coach, you need to understand that spot is coveted, and earning that spot as a 17 or an 18-year-old freshman competing against 20 or 21-year-old men or women adults who are remarkably talented, who are considerably older and more mature than you are, is going to be really, really hard. So we left that fantastic voicemail for all 4 coaches on the staff. Christine, can we bring up, please, the email portion? Here's our email. If you take a look at this, it looks an awful lot like our voicemail, but it is crucial. Perhaps the very first line, the most important. Hi, Coach Bowen. I also left a voicemail on your office line. You are linking that message you just left with this email. Now, don't think you can skip the voicemail part. I am telling you, in today's world, and mom and dad, I'm just going to be a little harsh here. These student athletes, they're lazy. There are a lot of them that are somewhat entitled because people are doing stuff for them. As simple as making a phone call? Come on. We need to pick up the phone. And when I tell you that these coaches realize that a portion of their job, especially when these student athletes are freshmen, is flat out babysitting, you need to understand that little things like this, leaving a voicemail and following it up like an email, just like the real professional world would do, could be a simple separator of getting an email or a call back and securing a meeting. So that first line, do not underestimate. My name is, you can see the rest of the paragraph. You'll notice that most of this email sounds and looks so much like our voicemail. We are simply going to take this, put it in email form, send it to those same 4 coaches, and we're going to wait. We're going to wait about 10 days. Now, if you notice, I put here, let's focus a little bit on that middle paragraph. The position you play. You throw out some stats. Now, be wary of the stats. If you go to a really small high school, there are 500, 700, 1,000 students, and you're a big fish in a small pond. You're all section. I'll argue that you might not even make the varsity team on some high schools that have 3,500 or 4,000 student athletes. You need to be aware that stats can be a little bit leery and a little bit kind of fudged because of the fact that all high school playing populations are not equal. But I still think you share some stats. The video part is crucial. We're not going to send the propaganda video set to the fancy graphics and music as an attachment to this email. We want to know what this coach wants to see from us. Because if we reach out to 3 different colleges, 3 different coaches want to see something different. You'll notice we put in the line about practice. You will only play a certain number of games. You might hit the furthest home run. You might have the greatest behind the back goal. You might make the best diving save ever. And it may have been fundamentally as bad as it could be. You just got lucky. And we all know in sports, there's plenty of luck involved. They want to see you practice. They're in the business of development. They know as an 18-year-old freshman, it's going to be challenging to start. But where are you going to be as a sophomore, junior, and senior? They take pride in development. Asking them, hey, what do you want to see from me on a video? You have computers. You have fancy tablets, iPhones, etc. Use them and go take 35, 45 seconds of real life, real time, real world video on exactly what the coach wants to see. So this is a little bit of a transition from going from the voicemail to the email to inevitably getting a callback. Now, mom and dad, you think that maybe I am part of the problem in the sports world. Oh, those agents are the reason why these salaries are so high and I can't afford tickets to this game. I'm not saying that there's a whole cycle of what makes prices go up, but I will tell you that when I hear all the time the business of sports, the business of baseball, football, basketball, these athletes getting paid all this money. Well, if the athletes are making all that money, how much money must the owners make? You think that's any different at the college level? These schools for $50,000, $60,000, $75,000 a year. Your $150,000 to arguably $300,000 investment over 4 years is what's paying for these student athletes to play. I would hope that as you go through this process, you take more stock in that meeting than just, can my son or daughter play as a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior? Christine, if you don't mind going to the questions and the answers, please. This one's a little bit smaller. Maybe, Christine, there's a way to make it a tiny bit bigger. I'm going to do my best to read off it. But you can see on the screen, what might a college coach ask when you visit their campus? We're assuming your voicemail and your email results in a response. When I talk about business, and you could spend $60,000 at Stonehill, at Babson, at Bentley, at St. Michael's, at St. Anselm's, they're all about the same. I don't care if it's those schools, it could be the Nescacs, your Trinities, your Bates, your Bowdens, your Colbys. They're all about the same academically. The extracurriculars, what they specialize in, the size of the school, the distance from home, that might all be different. But in those meetings, after the voicemail and the email, and it is a buyer's market, and those colleges know at $60,000, $70,000 a whack, it's not just an opportunity to play for their team, it's an opportunity to get mom and dad to spend $200,000 to $300,000 over 4 years. There's a really good chance that the coach, as a freshman, when you get there, is gone by the time you're a senior. They get fired, they get promoted, move on to a different program. It cannot be just about the athletics. And so when we are there, we need to be prepared to answer questions that aren't athletically based. I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to use some of these questions as an example. We're sitting in an office. For all those student athletes out there, the ones that have trouble sitting across from their mom and dad or their aunt and their uncle, or heck, even some of their friends, and having a conversation without a phone in front of you, welcome to your first real life world job interview. Because these are the types of things you're going to be asked about. Not about how you were the defensive player of the year. Not about how many goals you scored in that game in Rhinebeck. You are going to hear questions like this. What might you want to study? That's a layup. I'm good at math. I want to study business. Well, what are your interests outside of sports and academics? You better be ready for that one. Because if it's video games, that ain't going to fly. Why is playing in college important to you? I mean, aside from it's always been a part of your life, what value of me giving up a roster spot to you versus some kid from Massapequa or from Cortland? Why am I giving that spot to you? Why is it so important? Because you're all about the same. What did you do best off the field? What aspects of your game need improvement? You're sitting here telling me how good you are, watched your video. I didn't see any mistakes on the video. There's no way you're perfect. If you were, you would go straight to the pros. How would you describe yourself as a person? What kind of person am I getting? Are you the kind of student that shows up 15 minutes early for practice or 15 minutes late? Are you the kind of kid that's going to have your phone on during my meeting, or is it going to be in your bag tucked away and I've got your undivided attention? When you are at a party, because inevitably mom and dad, they're going to go to college and they're going to go to parties, are they going to be the kind of students and athletes and co-eds who, when they're at the party on a Friday night and everyone's daring someone to jump off the roof into the pool because it'll be funny and they're going to capture it on Instagram? Are you the kind of person that cheers them on and says, I'll take the video? Or are you the kind of person that's going to say, let's shut this down. We need to go home. This is bad news. And if you are not ready to answer questions like that, sitting across from a coach in your 10-minute interview, I promise you this, you are not going to make the team that day, in that office, in that meeting. But you can get cut from that team like that. You need to take this seriously. You need to be prepared for questions like that that are going to have nothing to do with sports. Now, I told you, mom and dad, it's your money. It is your $150,000 to arguably $300,000 investment. I would hope you would ask more than, so when does the starting point guard move on? Are they a senior and I'm going to be able to play as a freshman? I think we're going to want to dig in a little more than that. So, Christine, if you don't mind just scrolling up a bit, what should we be asking? What should we ask the coach? Because, again, it's a buyer's market. Your son or daughter, mom and dad, can go into any school that they get accepted to, and quite frankly, any school you can afford. So, Do they have organized study hall for players? This is a great, great time to bring up. This isn't 43-minute algebra anymore. This is going to be 65 or 70-minute lecture halls. The educational learning jump is going to be off the charts. I know Jody and her team and staff, they prepare you for stuff like this, but I'm a believer that you don't know what's coming until you're actually sitting there. So, study hall, players, is there something in place by the coach of the program to help them academically? Because this is going to be a remarkable jump from going from high school to trying to learn in college. Will there be an academic advisor to help monitor our progress? Because the coach might say, if you have under a 3.0, you're not going to play. And if you don't realize your freshman year that you're at a 2.7, you're not even going to be able to wear a uniform in the spring. Do you allow your athletes to pursue work study programs? For some students, they're going to need to work at school. They're going to need to have some sort of job. That job that is assigned to them, that might conflict with the practice schedule or the game schedule. Where does the coach stand on that? How much time is missed due to travel? I played at Stonehill. It was about 20 minutes south of Boston. We played in Burlington, Vermont against St. Michael's. At the time, we used to play against Quinnipiac. That was down in New Haven. We used to play against American International College out in Springfield. Those were 2.5, 3-hour, 5-hour drives. We left on those trips sometimes at 10 or 11 in the morning on a Tuesday or a Thursday, missing 2 or 3 classes for the duration of that day. Got back after getting our butts beat because I was on a team that was 4-37 my freshman year. 0-22 in the conference, statistically the worst Division II team in America. We got back at 10 o'clock at night. I had a class at 8 o'clock the next morning. Still had 2 hours worth of homework. What do? How would you describe campus life? Most kids, they're going to venture out onto a college campus where they really have no friends. It is going to be the biggest, I wouldn't say sociological, but it is definitely the most personal, the most societal jump they'll ever make. They're going from ultimately a virtual bubble of whether it's Westchester, Putnam, Rockland, Fairfield. They are going from a very safe, very close-knit community to a school that probably has students from 6, 7, 8 different states who all look different, who might act different, dress different. This is going to be a remarkable adjustment to their young social life. Better find out what that's going to look like before you plunk down $58,000 for year one and you find out that your son or daughter hates it. Do athletes live on or off campus? Because that experience on campus and off campus are 2 very different things. And this to me is a big one. Most of these student athletes, they're going to need to do an internship before they graduate. That is why they're there, to go to school and get an education. Right, Mom and Dad? Well, if that's the case, and they're going to need that prerequisite, they're going to go into education. They want to go be a high school athletic director. They're going to need to go into some sort of rotation. And that rotation comes up at Jones Middle School the fall of their senior year. And they play football, and they're going to be at Jones Middle School shadowing that AD 5 days a week from 8 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon. Practices start at 3. Guess what your son or daughter, I guess in this case son, but hey, your daughter might make that football team too. Guess what they're not doing that fall? Their senior year. I feel so awful for all the seniors that had their senior year snatched from them. This is a little bit different. This is a decision that's going to set up the job that you've just invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in. This is the job that's going to set them up for the rest of their career. They're not playing football if that coach says, yeah, if you got an internship, that doesn't work for us. You go do your internship, we're going to find someone to take that roster spot. Those are all the things that we need to be prepared for as a family. And it is up to that student athlete to be versed, to be prepared, to be ready to have these types of conversations after they do the legwork and send out those phone calls and send out those emails. So let's transition a bit. To me, that's a 30,000-foot overview of, look, I'm going to make this remarkably clear. This is just my opinion. I'm not saying that this is Bible, but when I tell you that I have 20 plus years in professional sports and in college athletics, when I tell you that, yeah, I use some of my own personal experience, but hey, I think it worked out pretty well for me. But for the Tom Bakers and the Adam Lodwigs and the Joe Seglias and the Susan Delays and the Jennifer Keens of the world that are out there, that are your athletic directors, who choose this line of work because they truly want to help your son or daughter. It is truly in the best interest, mom and dad, of your kid. And sadly, we take this approach that if we don't like what we hear, we take our ball and we go home. These ADs, they are trying to help you. And so much of my messaging, so much of what I have spent so much time creating to deliver for you is on such remarkable advice or conversations with ADs, with guidance counselors, with coaches, not just at the big league level or the top Division I college level. It's honestly at the high school level. So let's transition a bit and then we'll be down the home stretch here. I might ask Jody to jump in because I see on my screen it's about 4:08. Jody, what time would you like me to be done so we can open it up to questions and answers?
Mark, feel free to be interactive with the audience. I'm happy to pop Tommy back up there so you guys can talk with people. Whatever's going to work for you. I've been encouraging people to post their questions, and so I will continue to do that.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we transition a bit since we're on the topic and we're kind of wrapping up the recruiting portion before we segue into the character part. So, Tom, I know you've waited patiently. Unlike the old play-by-play guy, you're the color commentator, and I've just got my hands on your side saying, let me finish my thought.
That's all right.
Chime in.
No, Mark, you and I, as we said before, I've sat through your presentations now 5-6 times, and I think you and I have had plenty of conversations. We are definitely on the same page here. Some of the things that resonate with me that I want people to understand, and I think Margaret put a comment out in our chat box there, that when a student athlete has that opportunity to be in front of that coach, they truly are going on an interview. You know, the character does matter. You know, for the hundreds of kids that I have dealt with and worked with in this situation, you know, a coach may ask 10 questions to that student athlete prior to even asking a unique question about that sport. So some of the other questions that, you know, student athletes got to think about are, where are you a leader? Where have you demonstrated leadership abilities? And maybe it's in another sport where I held a position of a leadership, a point guard on a basketball team, a captain on a field hockey team on a separate sport, or I was the president or vice president of this particular extracurricular club. Those are all vital pieces that coaches want to know. They are interviewing you. And the other piece that resonates with me is your communication as a student athlete with a coach. I tell kids now, you don't want to be communicating like you are texting your friends. No IDKs for I don't knows. You're a professional here. So what you said really resonates there, and I think the student athletes have to understand that.
You get a phone call from an unknown number. You get a text message from an unknown number. You better be prepared to answer that professionally, to Tom's point, because I will tell you, there are so many students out there that make friends and trade numbers, and they just think the I don't knows is the IDKs, and that's actually the coach that you just reached out to, and they responded to you from their cell phone. You need to be prepared on all of these. And if your voicemail is some joke of a message, you might want to think again and make it a little more professional, because, to Tom's point, you never know when that coach is going to call. Jody,
I'm sorry, Mark, no voice messages should be full. You know, make sure your messages are available to take a message. We find so many kids that voicemail boxes are full.
And it's also okay. I'll say this. I do it as a professional myself. And I'm sure a lot of moms and dads do this too. It's okay to let the message go to the voicemail. Hear what the coach has to say. Take a moment to compose yourself. Prepare yourself for that callback. Don't just get caught off guard, stumble and bumble through your way through the conversation, because you're going to be excited. And you know what? You should be. Congratulations. This coach is calling you back. This is what you have spent years trying to get to. Be prepared for that moment. Be professional in that moment. So Tom and Jody, I notice now as I'm glancing to my right, I'm seeing a bunch of either comments or even some questions. Do you want to cherry pick a couple of questions here that either Tom or I can answer before we transition into character?
I have, some people are texting, not in the comment box. And I have somebody who said they have a question, but they haven't provided it to me to tell me exactly what the question is. I'm guessing it's a question for you, Mark. So I'm going to encourage, if you're looking to have a question asked and answered, and if we can help you at all from Mark or from Tom or certainly from myself, please go ahead and put it in the comments and we can see it if you type it in. That would be helpful so that we can answer your questions on any and all related points, whether it's about how you can manage this better during COVID, or if it's about, perhaps you're a sophomore, a junior, or senior. Those are all very different scenarios and situations currently, and may result in a different answer. So please feel free to put your thoughts or your comments in the box. I know a couple of you are sending, I think, emails, and we certainly want to be able to answer those. If you guys go ahead and continue, and I'll try to get those questions for you guys.
And Jody, one question that I noticed from Alicia was, will these slides be available? Yes, I've given these slides with permission to Jody to use the questions, the voicemails, the answers, those types of things. I am happy to provide over to College and Prep or really anybody that's a part of this. If they want to reach out to Jody, or as Jody pointed out earlier, my presentation is Perfect Placement. It's spelled with a Y intentionally, P-L-A-Y. Placement, you can always shoot me an email, and I'm happy to send any of the material your way. One thing that, Jody, you just brought up that I think is an incredible point is there's almost like an aha reveal here. I know that part of the way we positioned at least the promotional material for tonight was to take advantage during COVID-19, to take advantage during this coronavirus quarantine. Everything I'm sharing tonight, quarantine or not, this is how you need to do this. This is the best way to get those coaches to discover you, because I will be honest, I find this, and I think Tom Baker will back me up, attest to this as well. To think that a college coach is going to drive down from outside of Boston 3.5 hours to watch some game at Croton High School on a Tuesday in 43-degree weather in the rain when they've got their own program to focus on is probably a bit unrealistic. Because they've got not only their own program, but they're going to practice in the spring and the fall, regardless of what season they play in. They are going to always be working. And I told you, they probably have a full-time job doing something else. Could be associate athletic director. They could be in charge of the rec center. But the point is, they will have other responsibilities. They are overworked. They are underpaid. They are understaffed. And it is unrealistic to think that they are either A, going to come to your regular season game, and if they do come to some summer showcase tournament, it's very, very unlikely that it's going to be the head coach decision maker. So taking this type of approach and constantly trying to recruit yourself is not specific or exclusive to just these quarantine times.
Mark, we've got a number of questions coming in. I'm going to put some up that are coming to me personally through another means. So I'm going to put them up, but let's see, there's a couple.
Sure, why don't you just fire them off?
Yeah, I am going to do that. There's several. So what should your email contain when reaching out to a coach for the very first time? We'll start there.
The two samples we gave you is designed to be that very first interaction. So you identify that coach, you identify that program, you've chosen that college already for other variables. Those two sample email and voicemails. And again, let's not underestimate that voicemail comes before the email. Those are first time correspondence, in my opinion. Tom?
What it should not contain is only the student athletes that put in their initial email, "Hi coach, I play point guard, I'm averaging all this," and their initial email only speaks to their athletic capabilities. That initial email, as Mark sampled there for us, needs to contain your interest in that institution for its academic purposes. The coaches want to hear that as well. So that is a vital piece to put in there.
As they say, share the back of the baseball card, right? So you're going to put a few stats in, but we're going to be a little leery of those because all stats are not created equal. But we're also going to put in extracurriculars, what we're involved in on campus, off campus, the charitable contributions we make into society, what our GPA is, what our SAT or ACC scores are, what we want to study in that school, or at least what we think we would want to go into, because it is truly showing this college coach who gets, and this is no exaggeration, hundreds of these types of emails every single week. Unfortunately, they're not always the most qualified, and they're for people that are just sending blanket emails out saying, I just want to go play in college. There is no pre-qualifier for the coach to say, is this person wasting my time because are they sending this to everyone? Or did they handpick my school, albeit with 3, 4, 5 other top choices? They're going to give you that respect and attention if you give them the same.
Yeah. Another question. What if you play 2 sports? My daughter's a goalie for ice and field hockey, loves ice hockey more, but seems like there are more opportunities for field hockey. Some have said she needs to pick her top sport now. She's about to repeat sophomore year at prep school.
Well, Tom, do you want to address that one first and go with some of your experience? I would say the multi-sport athletes are always a very nice, attractive piece for any athlete going into the college world when they're meeting that coach for the first time or marketing themselves. I would say keep your doors open for both of the schools. As Mark said earlier on, you may start with 100 schools that you're thinking about, and at the end of the day, we want to get that down to that one correct school that fits you for the proper culture, for the proper academics, and then the athletics. So keeping your doors open with both sports is perfect, is the way to go. And it goes back to what I said earlier. She may be sitting with that ice hockey college coach, and the college coach says, well, what other sports do you play? They want to hear that. And what roles do you play on that team? I was the captain. I was the goalie. I led the defense. So those are all qualities that a coach likes to see in their prospective athletes.
Don't underestimate the fact that that multi-sport athlete is very sought after by coaches. You see it at the professional ranks. We hear about how great this NFL quarterback was an outstanding baseball player, outstanding soccer player, outstanding basketball player. I know there's a lot of Yankee fans out there. Aaron Judge, 3-sport athlete. And I get it, when you're 6'8" and you're 280 pounds and stronger than Hercules, it might seem like it comes easy. There was a baseball player with the Minnesota Twins named Brian Dozier, who made a pretty good career, 10 years in the big leagues. That guy was a 3-sport athlete as a 5'10", 5'11" kind of guy, but he played all 3 sports. He did not one-trick pony. I'm only going to put all my eggs into this basket. So believe it or not, I think you can actually leverage and benefit from being a multi-sport athlete. But Jody, I will ask you, if you could do me a favor, I want you to repeat that exact question because there was a point that stuck out in the question.
Okay, sure. What if you have 2 sports you play? My daughter is a goalie for ice and field hockey, loves ice hockey more, but seems like there are more opportunities for field hockey. Some have said she needs to pick her top sport now. She's about to repeat sophomore year. Oh,
I hate to interrupt, but that to me, that says it all. Some have said she has to pick her top sport. Who cares about what some think? We need to control this ourselves and go with the most qualified individuals who are in our circle. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has an agenda. And what stuck out most about some have said, they didn't say pick her top college. They said pick her top sport. Great time to bring up. So she chooses her top sport. She decides it's going to be field hockey. She goes off to this college. Maybe the size of the school, the distance from home, the majors, the minors, the extracurriculars. She's not 4 for 4 in those categories because she didn't pick her top school choice. She picked her top program choice. And regardless of all the promises and all the accolades as a freshman, she gets there. She was a stud as a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, and a senior in high school. Now she's an 18-year-old freshman playing against 20 and 21-year-old men and women who, like I said, I don't care if you started on varsity in 8th grade, this is going to be the biggest athletic jump you've ever faced. And when you are completely overmatched and they guaranteed a spot for you on a team and you have a 6-week tryout and there's only 3 positions open and you play one of those positions and you are just embarrassed by these juniors and seniors and some student from Rockland Community College who's already played 2 years of junior college comes in and plays the same spot, you're getting cut. I don't care about the promises. Now all of a sudden you picked a program. You didn't pick a college. And you're looking at a transfer situation. You're looking at a really, really disheartened student who has to start the process all over again. To me, that's not on the student. That's on you, mom and dad. Because we either listened to outside influences or we didn't put our priorities enough in order. And so whether it's you're overmatched athletically, you twist your knee, God forbid, the 7th day of tryouts and you just can't participate for 5 of the 6 weeks, that coach who I talked about, who comes in, the one that recruited you, and after your freshman year, we'll argue you played there as a freshman, that coach comes in and says, bring it in. I just want to let everybody know I just took the associate head coach's job at Virginia Tech. Today's my last day. They're going to hire a new coach. Everyone's got to try out again in the fall. All those variables, for the most part, you cannot control. And if you pick that college based on those types of experiences, those variables, I think you're asking for a whole lot of trouble and a nightmare of a situation. And that is unfair to this 17-year-old freshman in college. Tom?
Yeah, I can't agree anymore. And I said, keep those options open. College coaches really find it attractive for the multi-sport athletes. That's what they want. They want that multi-sport athlete.
Couple more questions coming in. There's a couple of there's a couple asking. Some of them are repeats, so let me lump those together for you guys. There are a couple of questions about how important are ID camps. Are they a money grab? Is it a good way to be seen? And also questions about highlight films.
Yeah,
Tom, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll hop on. I saw the highlight film there from Rich Reese, so I'll hop on that one. So many kids right now fall into this, these student athletes are creating these highlight tapes. And my advice to them is you have to make sure of a few things. You want to make sure they're done professionally. The college coach does not want a 10 or 15-minute highlight tape with all sorts of songs that they really could care less about hearing. So my advice is to keep it to 2 minutes and make sure that right in those 2 minutes that the first 30 seconds are the most impressive plays of that highlight tape, because the coach may just say, I'm good. That's all I needed to see, and move on. So you have to catch that coach's eye. But as I said before, they need to be done professionally and in a way that college coaches will be welcome to listening to them or watching them.
And to piggyback what Tom's saying, these kids, and I hate to call them kids, but we'll be realistic. They're 17, 18, 19-year-olds as freshmen, sophomore in college, and they go and they study certain things, and they're whizzes on the computer, and they can edit, and they can take photos and videos, and they can make a movie from their phone. They start that process when they're in high school. And so they actually have, in some cases, the ability to do this on their own and make it look super professional. The only thing that I would piggyback to Tom's point is I would not underestimate the value of the practice. To ask that coach, hey, look, and we said it in that sample email, game footage, but also practice footage, because the game footage is already created. The practice footage can be created specifically. It can be filled to the sales void, if you will, of different coaches from different programs. And by starting a dialogue and asking an open-ended question, as simple as, Coach, what would you like to see if I sent you a practice video? They might say, I want to see you work on this drill. I want to see you work on that drill. Might be a different answer for both coaches, but it allows you to show what you can do as an athlete beyond, let's say, the razzle and the dazzle, which, to Tom's point, absolutely gets their attention.
I know Jody asks about the ID camps and these showcases. You have to be careful on the showcases and these ID camps, because almost every college at almost every level offers them to some capacity. And sometimes the initial emails that student athletes may send to a college coach results in an automatic reply back to that student athlete that says, thank you for your email. I would love to have you at my June 15th class of 2023 college showcase time. And everybody gets excited. Oh, I got invited to this showcase, but it's an open showcase. It's there. Parents would be broke if they went to every single showcase that they were asked about or invited to or looked up or came across. So they have to be done strategically. Is it the potential school that you have a serious interest in attending, where you are getting in front of that college coach and that college coach will see you face to face? So you have to be very careful on them and strategically choose them.
It was also
there's one more, Mark. I'm sorry. There's one. I think this is important. How will the loss of the junior year season impact the process and capability to provide film?
I promise I'll get to that. I did want to piggyback one thing that Tom brought up, because a lot of people believe that I'm personally anti-showcase, and I can't make this point enough. I believe that, I think the expression was money grab. I'm a huge believer that most of them, unfortunately, are money grabs. I think it's all about how you look at it. If you think you're going to go to any one of these showcases, especially plunking down $500 or $1,000 and expect that you're going to get discovered, is, I believe, unrealistic. You know who runs the fastest at these showcases? The coaches, when it's over to their car. It's a fact, because they can't get out there fast enough. They're not going out trying to find the next who's who. Every top coach for every top program, regardless of sport or gender, knows who the top players are in the region, in the country. And so to go to another one and think that you're going to get discovered is probably, it's chasing a little bit of a white whale unicorn, in my opinion. If you go to that showcase, oftentimes at a college campus, this is the first time a student maybe is even on a college campus, sees the size of a college field, a college court, with the arena around them, up against student athletes from not just one bubble of greater New York, but from upstate New York and Syracuse and, Buffalo, maybe even Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut, out in Pennsylvania. It's the first time they get an opportunity to see what their real true value is as an athlete. If you can go in and look at it from those perspectives, taking advantage of touring that campus, seeing what that field looks like, getting used to what that jump's going to be, seeing how good the competition is going to be around you, and not worry so much about, hey, are they going to find me? We just spent time, a lot of time, probably a decent amount of money, identifying colleges that we want to go to. If you can find if those colleges are on the list of the showcase you're going to go to, I told you got to be an agent. Either before or after that showcase, have that student athlete go up to that coach and introduce themselves. Tell them to keep an eye on you because they are truly, genuinely interested. To what Tom and I's point were before about reaching out by phone and by email. We're truly interested already in your school. So now here's an opportunity to see me play live. I think they're mostly a money grab, but I think those are tremendous points. Go ahead, Jody, repeat that last question. I apologize. And then we'll transfer into the character part.
Sure. How will the loss of the junior year season impact the process and capability to provide film?
I defer, I think, to Tom on this one.
Yeah, and that's a valid question. It's one that's being asked now all across the country with kids that, are losing their spring season for their opportunity in their mind to, well, this was my chance to create a highlight tape. My only advice on this potentially is, as Mark said, is the highlight tape doesn't have to come from game footage. It can come from practice footage. If I'm a baseball player and I can videotape my swing, or I'm a pitcher and the mechanics that I have on the mound, the coaches see that. The other piece that I'm thinking is that it doesn't necessarily have to come from their junior year if there's footage from them as sophomore year. And I think one would have to say, Coach, I lost my junior year. My schedule was canceled due to COVID-19. Here is some footage from me as a 10th grader or as a sophomore, and move on to that. But coaches will see pretty quickly on various types of film what they're looking for in a student athlete from an athletic standpoint.
And I do think that there's a level of unpredictability and uncertainty, unfortunately, to that question. But everything that Tom just said, I 100% support. Keep in mind that at the college level, the seniors that were fall or winter sport, they're not getting additional eligibility. So in some rare cases where maybe there were senior college athletes who decided, you know what, this is a great time for me to stick around, retain my eligibility, and get a master's degree or something along those lines, I think you're going to see those percentage be remarkably, remarkably low. So everybody takes a step up, and the seniors now go become freshmen, and there really is a clean transition from one level of athletics and, more importantly, academics to the next. I don't think it's going to change too much, but I do think getting creative. I mean, look, if you can get creative on TikTok with the dance moves and all the joking around these kids are doing, you can get creative as an athlete in the drills you're doing and maybe challenging yourself to do some things that you wouldn't necessarily do. But we're encouraging you to reach out to those coaches and start the process to find out what they would want to see and go execute it. That would be my portion to that answer.
You brought up a good point there with being creative. I'm thinking some of the things that kids are doing right now on their own in their backyards, the shuttle runs and their cone drills where they're showing their agility. You can videotape that. You can time that. You can give a coach hard data. Coach, I was able to do a 40-yard dash today. There it is. That's hard data. They see that immediately as well. So being creative that way is also vital.
Totally. Jody, with your permission, I'd like to transition into the character portion, and then we'll leave some time at the end for a few more questions, and then we can wrap up.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
All right. So, Christine, that means you're back on. We need you, please, to put the character matters one sheet back up there, and we're going to focus on that bottom third so we can scroll down once you have it up on the screen. But, look, at the end of the day, when we talk about character, I had said earlier, It's not enough to just be an athlete. It's not enough to be a student and an athlete. You need to be a good human being. You need to be a person, and you need to be a contributing member of society. And if you take a look here at 1 through 3, and Christine, you can make this larger. They've seen enough of me. I really want most of the student athletes, and certainly the moms and dads, to lock in on this. To me, the number one thing as it relates to character is right there in number 1. These student athletes need to volunteer in their community. Put down the Fortnite. Stop with the FIFA or the MLB The Show. I'm not saying that video games are a part of these kids' lives. I represent Major League Baseball players that back in the day, they used to like to go out to a nice steak dinner in New York City or sometimes even a club in Los Angeles. Now they can't get out of the clubhouse fast enough to go play Fortnite against some 14-year-old kid that lives in Kansas. It's unbelievable. And it's true. So I get it. But to get off of the field, to get out of the classroom and be a member of society and be selfless and contribute. There are so many organizations out there. If you like PEPS, the ASPCA. If there is an inner city not far from you and you know they lack the resources, they don't have, and forget about money, they don't have the people to come in and volunteer as bookkeepers to keep score or keep the clock, to umpire games, to chalk the lines, set the cones, run the social media, whatever, the public relations, the stats. Go volunteer in those types of communities that don't have the same wealth and resources that you might. But for me, the biggest one, I hate to say the easiest one, but the one that makes the most logical of sense is special needs. There are special needs students in every single school that you see in your community. And the one common theme among all special needs kids is they did not choose to be special needs. And so if those students are already in the classroom or the building or the community, and I don't know about you, but I'm pretty certain they love sports too. They might play sports too, which is why the Unified Special Olympics, which is the New York State high school division of Special Olympics, whether it's the Miracle League, anything along those lines, where they need able-bodied volunteers. Mom and dad, they need your son or daughter to come and play with those kids, coach those kids, referee with those student athletes. Your son or daughter loves soccer, loves basketball, so do those individuals. And there are leagues for them to go and participate.
Mark, can you repeat that? I'm glad to put that in the comments for you, for everybody. Can you repeat that for me?
Sure. From the beginning?
No, the last part, the one that you just said.
Well, I mean, look, there are special needs children in all communities, and they do love sports too. They really do. And it is not hard to go volunteer because they do need coaches, they do need teammates, they do need referees. And for those student athletes who are special needs and love sports, this is such a great bond. It's such an opportunity for mom and dad, your son or daughter, to learn a little bit about themselves and quite possibly learn about somebody that's a little bit different from them. Because what do you think college is going to look like when they fly the coop? When they are off on their own with thousands of strangers, in some cases hundreds of miles away? They are going to be challenged. They are literally going to have one of the toughest social adjustments of their life, where it's going to be different and it's going to be a little tough and it might be a little awkward. Well, you know what? Sometimes meeting people that aren't like you, that's the case. And they have such a remarkable opportunity to do that right in your own community with some really, really great special needs kids. And quite frankly, excellent, excellent organizations. So that's number one. Number two. Now, you're going to see me move around a little bit on this one. I need to actually grab my phone. The dangers of social media and its consequences. You're going to hear a tone in my voice right now. I hate to say these kids, these children, they all have one of these. They have one because mom and dad put it in their hands. And albeit maybe at the beginning it was to make sure they can call or text home. Maybe it's in case of an emergency. But I'll tell you what it's turned into, mom and dad. And if there was anything that these students have to listen to, of everything that I said, arguably anything that Tom or even Jody have contributed today, it needs to be right now on point 2 and into point 3. You didn't put a device in their hands. You put a weapon in their hands. These kids have no idea how dangerous social media is. I have major leaguers that I have to text offline when I see they post something. Our social media department scrubs what these players post, write, think, say, because of the damage it can do to their career. These adolescents, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, they're on TikTok, they're on Instagram, they're on Snapchat, they're on group chats with their friends. Oh, it's just a chat thread here among my friends. Really? Well, the next time they decide to post a Post Malone quote or Nipsey Hussle because that's their favorite rap artist, and they decide to drop a N-word and they post that, yeah, that's not going to be construed as, oh, that was just Nipsey Hussle. That's going to be the racist kid who decided to use the N-word. Or the next time that they're all joking around with their friends and they call something gay, yeah, that's not going to be construed of like, well, how did he mean it? Was he referring to happy? No, she meant it as gay. And now all of a sudden, she's going to be labeled as a homophobe. Or for me, I think, unfortunately, the one that sometimes has the greatest consequence, that these student athletes don't know how dangerous it is, that there have been athletic programs throughout this nation completely decimated because of this type of course of action. Boy or girl, the one that decides to snap a little picture and share it with his friends. Maybe the locker room door was open this much. Some kid dressing, putting on their uniform, half dressed, maybe in their underwear. Let's take this picture. I'm going to send it to my buddies. I'm going to send it to my girlfriends. Well, you decided to circulate that around. That 15-year-old sophomore in his underwear that you took a picture of and shared with God knows who many or how many people. Well, you're not going to get a knock on your door from your mom or dad or your coach or your principal. That knock on the door for all those student athletes that thought that was funny is going to come from the police. And you're going to get yourself a free ride down to the police station. I don't care if you're the one that took the photo or just had it sent to you, because you're a part of this. And that's child pornography. And now you're a registered sex offender. So good luck getting through life. Forget about making the college team. Good luck getting through life with that on your record. If you don't think that these types of situations are happening in every community across the country, and you're not taking this serious enough, you are going to see your college dreams be dashed before you even get to that campus. And if you don't think that even at the smallest Division III school in the nation, with literally just 100 students or so at that school, isn't taking the time to scrub what you decide to post, what you decide to photo, what you decide to think on social media, they are not going to take the due diligence and do the work to see what type of person you are, that they are going to put their career, their personal livelihood on the line based on things that you wrote. I don't care if it was when you were 13 and a freshman. You are gravely mistaken. So, mom and dad, you need to be aware of this situation. You need to know how serious this is, and that these are not just phones, and you need to take them as seriously as if your daughter or your son was carrying around a weapon. Now, Christine, we're down the home stretch. If you don't mind, if you could please put the photos up on the screen, and you can make those, quite frankly, the entire screen. We don't necessarily need to see me. So you see a series of photos here. When I give this presentation live in person, it's a little bit different, because what I really want every student athlete to do, and I want them to do it now, and I told you a few moments ago, if you were going to listen to anything, it was part 2 and absolutely this final part of our presentation. I want every student athlete to take a look at these photos. I want every student athlete, every kid, to take a look at this young man. And I want you, to your mom and dad, to yourself, but out loud, describe how this kid would be described if they were walking down the hallway of your school. Now, I'm not saying you're the one that would say it, but the person a few lockers down, maybe it's, the cool kid teammate, the real smart aleck that lives down the street, how would they describe this kid? And because I can't hear you, I know that you're talking amongst yourselves. And your son or daughter, mom and dad, is saying fat, dork, geek, four eyes, unathletic, loser. And you know what? I'm not saying that they're wrong, that that's what they hear. That's exactly what they hear every day. And you know who else hears it? That kid, that boy, that girl. And not just in high school, not just in middle school, all the way down to elementary school. Those types of things are being said to our youth all across this country. And when I tell you that that's not name calling, that's not just making fun of someone, it's bullying. And that bullying has remarkable consequences. Nobody wants to see a real life, real world 13 Reasons Why Season 1 play out. But when I tell you that when that student hears those kinds of words every single day, not down the hallways, but on that social media I just referenced, it is inescapable. They cannot get away from it. Mallory Grossman, I think of her all the time. When you're done tonight with this presentation, look up Mallory's Army. If you don't think this is happening in the real world, especially in the tri-state area, you need to think again. Because as student athletes, it is your job to be a leader on the field, right? Your job is to be a leader off it. Your job is to protect that kid hearing those types of things. You are to ensure that they don't live that kind of life. It is not hard to sit in the cafeteria. It is not hard to walk down the hallway. It is not hard to say hello when you see them at CVS. It is not that challenging to go up to that boy or that girl and make conversation, to befriend them. Trust me, you will learn an awful lot about them. You will learn about yourself, and you will each make a difference in the other's lives. Bullying is a huge problem. You are a student athlete. You have a social responsibility. And when I tell you that every single person who is on this Facebook Live is here because they want to play in college, they want to go be a college athlete, well, when you are a freshman on a campus 4 hours away from home with 6,000 strangers and those juniors and those seniors who are going to haze you, who are going to tease you, who are going to bully you, it is going to happen. And you are going to lay in bed at night with no friends and no family around, wondering, why is this happening to me? And I'm here to remind you, it's called karma. And maybe you should have thought more about the way you treated people in your community when you had an opportunity to make a positive difference. I urge you, if you take anything away from tonight, you need to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. And when you look at that photo, when you see that fat, dork, geek, loser, remember, he has been talking to you for over an hour. Because when I heard those things growing up, I didn't let them break me down. I used them to build confidence. I use them to build courage. Every one of you student athletes do something. You do something unique. You have a gift inside. You need to find it, figure it out, harness it, cherish it, and develop it. Shockingly, mine was talking. It was my Teflon. Now, I wasn't the most athletic, but I can tell you, I used my close circle of friends. I used the people that I truly could trust. Not the ones who claim they were my friends, my best friends. The Patties, the Whacks, your parents. Step back. Know who you are. Trust who you are. Trust your circle. Build your courage. Build your confidence. Because those two words, those two actions, a bully cannot break through. They cannot get to you if you are courageous and if you have confidence. Think about it as an athlete. If you are going up against someone and you have a ton of courage and even more confidence, that opponent is in for a fight. We got to look at this the exact same way. I get it. Not everyone's the bully. Sometimes you're the one getting bullied. We all collectively have to be part of the solution. Okay, so that, for the most part, minus any questions or answers, from either me, Jody, or certainly Tom wraps everything up tonight that I had to say. Without question, this was a lot of fun for me. I really appreciate the opportunity to join Jody and Tom, and I really hope that you all got something out of it as well.
We have just a few more questions we're going to address before we sign off for the evening. Tom, do you want to address a couple of those you had mentioned?
Yeah, I saw one question was, what would be our recommendation on the average amount of community service hours needed for colleges? And my advice there would be not to focus on the number, but to focus on what actual community service is being done. Does it provide you with the opportunity to demonstrate leadership abilities? As Mark alluded to, working with a unified sports team in New York, which is that Special Olympics, the Pioneer team, or a Special Olympics organization. Focus on those types of activities that you can demonstrate leadership with. I know there are graduation numbers required for specific high schools, and that's great. If you get to 300 plus, then that's something you want to celebrate and promote, but make sure you focus on the ones that provide that leadership. That was one. There was, Mark, do you have anything to add on that? I'm sorry.
I think you nailed it. I think that's perfect. I think if you're looking for a schedule, 2 or 3 hours on a Saturday, every other Saturday, an hour or two every other Tuesday, you kind of schedule and stagger your schedule to have 10, 12 hours. And as Tom points out, every program, or there are various requirements in terms of minimums, but I don't think it's asking too much to make those types of contributions to your community. And mom and dad, again, let's be realistic. I mean, it's not enough to be the athlete and the student. You're really trying to grow your young son or daughter into human beings who are going to be contributing members to society. They're learning about a whole lot more than just books and sports on the field.
There was another question that also came up, Mark, and you and I could probably tag team on this one in regards to what does the initial email look like to a school that you can't visit? And that's reality, and that happens quite often for the individuals that might be living on the East Coast and want to go to a school on the West Coast. And I think the communication with the coach needs to be open and honest. The phone call can still happen. The initial emails can still happen. And when that communication does occur, coach, I'm sorry, I live on the East Coast. I can't get over there. I can't get out west as often as I'd like, or I can't do it just yet. But be open and honest, and those initial phone calls and emails can state that as well.
I would agree. I think you nailed it on that. And I think that transparency and honesty is something that unfortunately in society has gone by the wayside. I think the more honest and the more upfront and the more genuine you can be, I try to pride myself on that as an agent. I know that, there's always stories and rumors, and for a lot of the parents, y'all saw Jerry Maguire once upon a time, and admittedly, I'm probably a little more like Bob Sugar than I am Jerry Maguire. But in terms of the honesty and the transparency, I'm a lot more like Jerry Maguire. So I think anytime you have an opportunity to do that and share it, I think you're going to earn respect. You're going to earn respect from the coaches, and it might actually accelerate the process to your benefit.
Amazing. I don't see any more questions. Tom, did I miss anything? Do we feel like
I was looking myself. I didn't see any others. I wanted to make sure we hit them.
We want to make sure we got everybody's questions answered. And so I'm going to just say, if you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can reach Tom at collegeandprep.com. You could give us a call. Tom's happy to respond by voice, email, text. And so we certainly want to be available to you. You may have more questions after this evening that we might be able to answer for you. You may need some direction, especially given the certain circumstances for juniors and seniors right now. And we're here to help. So I'm going to put that on the screen before we go. But before I do that, I certainly want to thank profusely Mark Leinweaver for joining us this evening. What an absolute pleasure it is to know you. I hope we'll have more opportunity to get to do some things with you. We invite you to come and see us in person at some point in time. If you're back home here, we would love to be able to see you. We welcome you to visit with us. We'd love to be able to see you present live. And if that's something that we could host in the future, we'd be happy to do that as well. Mark, do you want to share just one more time how people could get in touch with you as well?
Absolutely. And I also want to say, in addition to the thank you to you and to Tom, but Christine knocked it out of the park as our IT extraordinaire, because me leaning forward too close to have to manipulate any of those documents we would have probably been knocked offline. for me, look, we all have downtime, right? And I speak oftentimes at universities. I'm very fortunate to lecture at the University of Southern California, among other schools. And I'm hearing a lot from students that are juniors or seniors in the college or at the college level opposed to the high school level. We can all make a difference. We can maximize this downtime. I know sometimes it's a little easier said than done. Everyone's circumstances are different with quarantine and homeschooling and trying to figure it out. Some of us are working, some of us are not, and it's an unfortunate and really challenging time. But I do think that we all can either take some of the things we did tonight or maybe branch a little bit out of what we always talk about. Oh, you know what? If I had more time, I would do this. And I could tell you in a way to tie it back to Jody's last comment or remark is that's something that I looked at. Perfect placement for me is true and honest and real, and I have a remarkable passion for it, but it's a side gig because it's a passion project based on my 24/7, 365-day job as a sports agent. So Perfect Placement, PLAYCEMENT, is available if you want to drop me a note. If you were involved tonight and you want to connect with me or Jody or Tom, I'm happy to do that. We all have some downtime. And I will tell you that the reason why I jump at the chance to do things like this when I got the offer and the opportunity through Jody, it's because I know the difference it made in my life. Not my college choice, not my baseball playing career, in my life. At 44 years old, I can go back to 17 and know that this process put me on a path to being where I am. And 500 feet from the ocean in Manhattan Beach ain't so bad. So please, I encourage you to do something similar. And if you have any questions or any comments, feel free to reach out through Jody or at perfectplacement.com.
Terrific. Well, again, we're thrilled everybody was here. This replay will live live as a replay on our College and Prep Facebook page where everybody is joining us now. We will not take it down. It will be here. We encourage anybody who would like to share it. It will be shareable. And we hope that you'll come back as we have several other live events coming up on college admissions, on testing, on how it's affecting juniors and seniors. So if you continue to look on our Facebook page, you'll see those events posted, registrations available. We'll be here live over the next couple of weeks, hosting those. And we welcome you to join us and send us your questions. And in the meanwhile, again, I encourage you to reach out to Tom if you have additional questions on the college or student athlete and the college process. Thank you, Christine. As always, Mark, Tom, I'm Jody Liston from College and Prep. And I think this is a good point for us to say, wherever you are, we hope that you are all well, your loved ones, your families, your colleagues, be well, stay safe. And we are so appreciative that you joined us here this evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.